this. I'm almost pulling down, and that helps me pull this ridge that's in the back of my mouth. Hi, this is David, and if you're an English speaker living here in France, I can help you with your French so that you're not tripping over your words. And if you're not on French time, maybe you live in a different country, maybe you live in the US or in Australia. If you're an English speaker, I also know another person who can help you. So I'll put the name down in the notes. What we're going to do today is work on rendez-vous, and we're going to learn how to bring the soft palate down to meet the back of the tongue when it rises for the R. That's going to make our R crisp, and we're going to get to that. But first, I have a few other things I have to tell you first so you're ready for that part. So first thing is that we're not saying vous, it's vous. So we're not saying rendezvous, rendez-vous. So here difference, vous, 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 vous. All right, next thing is a little trick that will help you. I'd like you to take the tip of your tongue and touch it to the inside of your lower teeth. This is to help you avoid the English R, because if you raise the tip of your tongue up, that's going to take your tongue out of position. So you may not realize that you're making the English R when you speak French, but most people are. And it's because the English R, that raising the movement of raising the tip of the tongue up is deeply ingrained in our brain, in our English speakers' brains. So we're probably doing it without recognizing it or without knowing it. Next thing is a trick that I use is I am picturing my sound as coming from a very small area right behind my teeth. So when I speak French, I'm keeping my tongue forward and I'm keeping my mouth closed. So this is my English mouth and my French mouth is closed. And there's only a small little space. I'll put a drawing up on the screen at the front of the mouth, and that's where the sound's coming from. So when I am speaking French, I am trying to enunciate so that my consonants are clear, but my tongue is moving just very finely in that front area, and I'm thinking of the sound is coming from there. So that keeps my tongue forward. I'm always pushing forward with the tongue. Next thing is, did I already mention, don't make a scratching sound, please. Don't add in a scratching sound. You don't need to do that. That's a mistake. That's going to also take your tongue out of the correct position. The next thing is, last thing, you know that the back of the tongue needs to rise up. But also what you want to do is learn how to put tension in the sides of the cheeks. That's a starting point to bringing the soft palate down. If you're doing kind of like this, I'm almost pulling down, and that helps me pull this ridge that's in the back of my mouth. I'll put a drawing up of that, and there's a ridge of skin there, or of muscle, that can be pulled down, and that makes your R sharp. So what we want to do is we're going to experiment on the word Paris, and then I have no idea, because I don't know you and I'm not with you there. I don't know if you're going to feel this right away or on the third time, or maybe you need some more help, but let me know in the comments and maybe I can redo the video to help you better. But what we're going to do is I'm going to say Paris without the tension in the cheeks, and then I'm going to add the tension. So if I say Paris without tension, it's going to sound like this: Paris, 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 Paris. I am bringing up the back of the tongue as I think I should, Paris, Paris, but I'm not really having a sharp R there. So what I'm going to do now is add this tension. You may even see the skin on either side of my nose move. Paris, 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 Paris. Now I'm closing down with that little fold at the back of my mouth. I'm closing that down so that it meets the tongue. Paris, Paris, Paris. All right, so now let's say rendez-vous, and then we're going to put rendezvous into some sentences, and I'll explain why it's so important to put it into a sentence, what that does for us as we're looking for the French mouth position, because that's the whole goal of this. There's two big things to help you with your French. One is to be understandable because you're pronouncing the correct vowel sound. So you're not saying, for the word wine, you're not saying vent, you're saying vin. Vent is wind, vin is wine. So you need to say the correct vowel sound. Now that takes people 3 to 6 months of working one-on-one with a tutor. The next thing is less important, but it's less important for being understood, but it's more important for you having fun in France, and that is no longer tripping over your words because you're pronouncing French with the right movements so that you're not coming to a word that you just can't get out of your mouth. I don't know if you've lived in France for a while. I mean, if you've just been on vacation, you maybe don't remember. But if you lived in France, you have had situations where you went to, let's say, the hardware store, and you had a word that you just couldn't pronounce. It just wouldn't come out, and it's because you haven't yet really perfected the French mouth position. So that's what we're doing here. So, rendez-vous, rendez-vous, rendez-vous. I'm pulling down here, rendez-vous, and now I'm going to put it into a sentence. La clause de rendez-vous prévoit de réexaminer cette question. So I'll put these sentences down in the comments if you'd like to practice them. La clause de rendez-vous prévoit de réexaminer cette question. Here's another one. Son agenda était plein de contacts et de rendez-vous. Now the importance of putting things into sentences and reading whole sentences, or to do listen and repeat to somebody who's speaking very slowly, is to help us recognize, to find the places where we're not yet doing things correctly. So in isolation, if you have a neighbor whose name, I know that you've had this experience if you live in France, you have a neighbor or a coworker whose name is something like Valérie or Véronique or Grégory. Grégory was the worst for me. If I have a coworker named Grégory, it's just a horrible nightmare. So it's words like that when you put them into a sentence, you realize, oh, maybe I don't know how to pronounce that, because when it's in a sentence, I just can't do it. So that's your cue to look for new ways to move your tongue and lips. Maybe you need to look for something. So putting these into sentences. Here is another sentence. I can't remember which one I read already. Son agenda était plein de contacts et de rendez-vous. Son agenda était plein de contacts et de rendez-vous. De rendez-vous, de rendez-vous. Son agenda était plein de contacts et de rendez-vous. Nous vous invitons fortement à nous fixer rendez-vous dès que possible. Nous vous invitons fortement à nous fixer rendez-vous dès que possible. So what I'm doing is kind of mashing up and down, but I'm not moving my tongue back and forth like this. So what I've done with this video is talk to you about the French mouth position and try to help you feel the French mouth position. So in general, mouth is closed and tight. The tongue isn't moving back and forth in the mouth. And the up and down motion is very limited. So hopefully that helps you. And you can let me know in the comments. I'd love to know if any of you who are first-time triers actually felt this right away. That would be great to know. All right, have a good day.